Okay, good morning, everyone. Saturday morning, and we're going to start with the Tai Chi Paradigm and move on to the 108 movement form. Hope everyone had a nice Friday. You might have gone out to dinner and sat outside and had dinner, but it's not actually what I like to do. But the thing is, everyone's saying support the restaurant, so I'm glad you're supporting us Saturday morning watching this video. Share it with everyone that you know. We're trying to do something that's good. All right, hands up. First exercise. It could be either way, and we're going to turn the waist, loosen it up. And if you did eat a lot yesterday, this is what you need to do. Turn your waist. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, now we're going to bring the hand over like this, and we're going to bend to the side. 1, 2, 3. Switch. 1, 3. Switch. 1, 2, 3. Switch. 1, 2, 3. Switch. 1, 2, 3. Switch. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, next, hands by your side, palms like this. Lift up, reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right, 2, 3. To your left, 2, 3. Center, inhale, exhale. Hands up, reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right, 2, 3. To your left, 2, 3. Center, inhale, exhale. Okay, one more time. Hands up. Remember, breathe through your nose, hands going down, relax, exhale, and then just kind of hold it. Don't actually breathe. Just hold, sustain your breath, and then now you lift up and inhale. Palms up and exhale on the down. Okay. So do this as naturally as possible. Hands on your waist, circular movements. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center. Cross. Knees. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center. Hands on your waist, neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center. Back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center. Tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Center, bend down, rotate around, 1, 2, 3. Reverse, 1, 2, 3. Hands up, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay, spread your feet, turn shoulders, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, now we're going to face this way. Stretch it out. Switch. Switch. And switch. Okay, let's switch again. Let's face this way. Straighten the front leg. Work the back of the legs. Okay, try to keep your back as straight as possible and stretch from way up high up in the glutes. Get the back of that, right near the joint, get that part of the muscle to relax. Switch. Kind of slide down, relax, go as deep as you can. Switch. Switch. Center. And shake it up. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands to your waist. Shoulder roll. Okay, reverse. center. Okay, next, palms down. We're going to press to the back, release, press, release, exhale, inhale. And stop. Hands up, pull in, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, wrists. So your elbows and knees folding and unfolding. It's a circular movement. So size does matter, the size of the circle. Just track it by watching, and you notice how high it goes, how far it goes to the side, where it passes the lower point. So just pick up on where the transition takes you. That way you can determine the size. The rest of it is, the more you do it, the more consistently the movements become. Consistently defining that specific space. Okay, now I'm going to go the other way. Reverse directions. And center. Now we're going to put palms down. The big circle goes from the shoulder and around. Remember, relax the shoulders. Circular movements. One, two, three. And it's way up high like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, we're going to shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, so before we begin the balancing exercise, that's sort of the first set of the limbering up exercises, and it's usually done pretty close to that order. And the whole premise of doing these patterns of movement, I say circles here or circles there. Each one of those circles, they vary in size, but at the same time, we're dealing with a skeleton, a skeletal structure, and then the musculature that controls that. So these are your appendages, the appendicular part of the body. And we're focused on the gross movement. But why do we use the body like this? And why do we create all those patterns? Why do we need all of those? Because we have so many groups of muscles, and we don't have to define every one of them, because that's not really why we're doing what we're trying to learn. We're not trying to learn that we're generating patterns and movement, and specific muscles work those motions, how it creates the contractions and relaxation of these pieces, your skeletal structure. So because there's so many varied movements and it takes so many groups of muscles to create that action, we're creating a motor skill at the same time stimulating circulation, because stimulating circulation is one of the important aspects of movement. We have to get circulation happen. So we want to move the whole body and get circulation throughout the whole body. We have to move all these joints and we have to move all these directions in order to create that. Now, there's other forms of exercise where you work groups of muscles, but to create motion in space that's so dynamic, so complex, you'd have to do 1,000 exercises to work different groups of muscles. Whereas when we're developing a pattern of movement, we have all these groups of muscles simultaneously interacting with each other in this sort of synergetic way to create a motion that's pretty amazing and incredible. But the thing is, unless you knew that there's these patterns, you wouldn't be able to replicate these motions. So that's why when we do something over and over again, the musculature starts to work with you to figure out how to do this. And the more precisely and the more accurately it's done, it's really through repetition. And we're dealing with space. So space is all of this. But we want to deal with the realm of a space that allows us to be functional, working within the realm of that space as naturally as possible. So natural motion is really the muscles that are involved correctly. You could have a group of muscles working in conflict, create a motion, and that's actually going to be, that conflict will actually cause a misalignment of the joint in your body, and that actually over time will create some type of injury. So any movement that you're going to do that's in conflict is going to cause, through friction or misalignment, some inflammation in the joint. So you can imagine it could be your knee, it could be your hip, it could be your shoulder. All of these things, once there's inflammation, your body doesn't like it. It doesn't like it, and it causes swelling or whatever, and discomfort. So these are things that you become more and more aware of simply by doing this group of exercises. Now, that was a lot of it's upper body, and say, well, I didn't really use my legs, but you've been using your legs all along because you've been standing. Now, the fact that you're standing, you're already building some type of feeling. So while I do this and I say, oh, it's the shoulder, relax the shoulder, we're only looking at the gross movement, but actually your body and your torso and everything else that helps you create this motion is still involved. The fact that you're in a balance or standing position and the body is a little bit, swaying in a sense that it's moving in a direction, if you're relaxed enough, then there's a response. What's going on in the legs is responding. That feedback allows you to stay in a vertical position, an erect position, without tipping over, without, throwing your body totally out of line in the bottom. So you're actually, it's kind of multitasking. You're standing, you're moving your arms, and so forth. Now, I'm doing this, I'm standing, moving my arms, and I'm also talking. So all of these things are all, happening up here, and I can do these things simultaneously. And how does that happen? It all happens up in here. So when we're shifting our weight from side to side, there's another part of the learning. We shift to find the center of balance. The center of balance is the center of mass. So when we shift and we shift and we find our position, it becomes knowing. In the beginning, you don't know. You have to go through the process, and eventually you find that position. So people that are having trouble with balance and ability to stand on one leg, it really, because your body or your connection actually has been somewhat severed. It doesn't really know how to do this. So by doing it over and over again, we find our center, and then you'll find that balance point. And that's the point. You can pick your leg up, you can bring it down, you can move it to the side. All of this happens as a response to what we're doing. Now, that's shifting from side to side. So shifting from side to side is not just bringing the weight there. Your skeletal structure, or your skeletal position has to be modified to adapt to a position of balance. So your hip actually would curve a little bit. And we may not pay attention to this, but if our hips are straight like this and there's an alignment, the joint is here. So when you're here, when you move like this, actually what happens is where the foot in this area, you can use your coccyx area, maybe the tailbone as a reference point. If you bring your tailbone over enough and it aligns with the sole of the feet, you're going to find an alignment. Now, if you have wider hips, the transition has to be more in order to find that vertical line. And in order to do that, your hip actually has to have some flexibility and range of motion. So if it's tight, and then maybe there's, maybe a lack of range of motion from not using it, it's going to maybe not allow you to do this. So, maybe there's calcium, whatever, that's built up in the hip, or maybe the joint itself has been compromised from not moving. So when we shift, we have to find that position. So until you can find that position, you probably will have some balance issues. So here, we lift, find that position, and we lift. Now once we stand on one foot, the foot actually is doing some work. The foot, the toes, and so forth is doing a little work to help stabilize you, because the toes are going to be twitching like this to get you in a position. So what happens when you shift and you lift, you can actually grip the floor. Grab with your toes a little bit, and that actually gets those moving. So your toes are like your fingers. They can do this. They can kind of do this. So that's actually what's going on to keep you balanced. Otherwise, you're just standing on a flat block, and it's really not going to be stable. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So that's a concept. You have to understand the concept in order to work through these movements, all right? So now we're here, and we're going to actually swing the arms like this. And then we're going to actually bring a leg out on the opposite side. So this is just going out and forward. So that's your initial step. On the other side, that's your initial step. So if you have trouble figuring out whether it's like this or like this, then take that first step. And that actually initiates a motion. So if you do this a dozen times, you'll actually start to get a relationship. Now, if you did this a dozen times for a week, as soon as you start this exercise, that's what's going to happen. And it's the same action that you would actually have when you walk. Now, if your center leaves that point, then this foot has to catch. That's a support. If I'm here and I go like this, if my center goes off, then you catch yourself like that. So that's what happens a lot of times when you're doing this exercise. You lose your focus for a second, and then you have to reset. So on the other side, the same thing happens. So if we're here, you initiate. And then after a while, you know which motion starts. And then once you're in motion, it stays. The relationship stays. You get more relaxed, and you just go through the motions, and you cycle through. And center. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Now we're going to go side to side. So this is like this, and then this is what happens when you go to the center. But when we do this exercise, we want to pass through center and end up like this, and then like this. And it just swings. And center. Okay, switch. Other side's the same. It's just going to come to here, but then go through. And center. Okay, hands up. Pull in, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay, next is silk reeling. So when I'm here, so these are continuity exercises. Now we're beginning to work on combinations of hand and leg movements. Now you're building coordination, but then posturing. So posturing positions and positions throughout the form. So a lot of these are just passing through some of the positions in a form to recognize and define some of the spatialness and movement. Now this movement is actually fairly complex. When you go to the shoulder and the hip and the forward position, and then this hand goes down here, and that's really about where the hip is. So you start to reference. You start to track. We're dealing with a space, and the body has to work this to accommodate that space. And while we're doing that, we're going into a position. This is diagonal flying. It's also similar to pat the horse's mane. When we come back to here, it's more like going into neutral, and then we go forward again. All right. Now we're going to switch. So if you've been following the videos, you would know that this is broken down into a few components, a few numbers. Is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's those positions. And then this is that reset. It's really starting from 5 or 0, and we're just going to go forward and back and forward. And as you blend the movements and you get the coordination, then the hands and legs actually synchronize. One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, next. We're in this position. Cross the hands. Okay, now you see this hand is forward, open. Now if you're watching this and you see from the back, we're working the same side. But if you don't see the hand movements, look into the mirror and you can see the mirror image, but you also see how the hands are working. And you see how the body is slightly twisting, 45 degrees and 45 degrees. So 45 degrees, if you're not sure what that really means, this is 0 and that's 45. That's on this side. Now we have a 45 there, but we're not going there, so we have to just work on this half of the space. Okay, so this is open, and this is where the 45 position is, and this is where the 0 or square position. Okay, now we switch legs, put the front arm with the front leg, and we open. Now we're working with this hemisphere, this side of the body. There's the 45, there's the 0, we cross. Here's the frontal square position, or parallel to the front. Here's going to 45 and cross. So if you still don't know what 45 degree means, it means this point to the front of the mirror is a straight line, 90 degrees. There's the 90 degrees. Now when I'm here, there's 90 degrees, okay? If I turn like this, and the sternum points to that direction, that's 45 degrees. So that's where they merge. That's where they meet. Now they don't merge just here. Where's it merge? It merges in your spine. It merges, that's your So the axle that goes through here, that's your axle, and then I turn from here. So that's where the rotation happens. So when I cross here, and I open, and I close, and I open, and I close, you can see I'm rotating on that vertical axis, which is sometimes the analogy they use is the flagpole. So flagpole goes vertically up, and then the banner is the flag. So when you open your hands and you wave your hands, it's like the flag on a pole. So that's one reference. Now, if you're in this position and I have my weight over my leg, and then ultimately the tailbone goes right through toward the heel of the supporting leg. Okay, so that's the same center point that you have when you're here. So when I shift my weight to here, and I find my balance point, that's the vertical line. So what we're dealing with when we get to the lower half of the body is to connect the upper body with the lower body in a way that we can align that vertical line. The vertical line is the true line. That vertical line is the line that allows you to stack your skeletal structure in the most balanced way. So when things are in balance, what happens? It doesn't add sort of the additional forces. So as an example, if I'm standing like this and I'm in a vertical position and I'm stacked, there's muscular contractions happen on here, and here, all around the body to sustain this position. Now what happens if I start to tilt forward? Your body starts to compensate, because if you didn't compensate, you'd fall on your face. And that's what happens when you trip or you stumble, because you lose the bearing and your body doesn't respond quickly enough to capture yourself, or you're not strong enough. But if I start to tilt like this, my body will compensate. But at the same time, the muscles here keep me from falling over. And the body starts to tense here more than here. So your body will actually start to become misaligned and using your musculature not in a balanced way. So if I'm leaning like this, I'm using the muscles here. It's doing more work than I'm doing here. So ultimately, at the end of the day, when you're standing like this, the back's going to be very tired. And then if you lean too much and you're top heavy, it takes even more strength and more strength and more strength until your back is completely fatigued. And if you're doing that day in and day out over a period of time, this area is going to get very stiff and it's always going to be sore, because it's always in a fatigue condition where it's not working. And then you can't twist because you can't turn now, because that starts to firm up and it gets so stiff and rigid that it doesn't work as a motor skill really, other than holding. So holding a position that's sustained tension really creates some of that rigidness. So that's really some of the things that you can think about if you have problems with rigidity and leaning. So that's for people that actually have these issues. Anyways, so when we're here, deep breathing, we try to find the vertical position. And by overdoing this over and over again, I say overdoing because that's what we're training to do, your body will start to self-correct and get rid of the excessive tension that's here, the lean that shouldn't be there, all of the things that are bad habits. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is preparation. Now, here's that vertical position. So now we're in movement. And movement, trying to find the alignment of that vertical line, sinking in the knees and sinking in the hips and releasing the ankles. Now go as deep as you can without tensing the ankles. So that means let it go. Because the better you can do this, the better your response would be if you had to fold your knees suddenly. And press down. So just that action, doesn't matter if you're a beginner or intermediate or advanced or someone that's been doing it a long time. This is always a challenge until your body actually lets go and your body starts to understand what that really means. Because while you're trying to get to that most relaxed stage where you're most stable and sunken into the stance, there's always going to be a level of conflicting actions. So if the ankles don't release, it's going to create something like that. Because if the ankles don't release, the only way to go down is actually, at least think you're going down, is to go like this because of the compensation for the shift in the skeleton. So same thing applies. If you don't compensate, you're going to tip over and you're going to fall. So the only way to develop that is do it regardless of how deep you can go, is to let those joints relax until you can go into the position. And that continually varies, and that's how you evolve. Something as simple as that is an improvement. So it doesn't take learning a total sequence to get improvement. The fact that I go like this and I'm sinking into the position and getting the body to be in this state is already an improvement. So, levels of improvement are measured in different ways. We don't think of that as being an improvement because it's somewhat abstract. You don't really know it. So you have to kind of go a little deeper in your training to understand and realize what that's actually doing. Okay, again, we're going to deep breathe. Again, sustaining the balanced position. Right? So everything that we're doing is about balance. I mean, I probably can spend hours and hours talking about balance and how it's related to everything that happens, but we won't even get into that. So at this point, we just did that. Now we're going to do some standing positions. Okay, actually these are patterns, and all this really leads into transitional motions in the form, but while we're doing that, we're building geometry, circles, crosses, and hoops. So you have upper hoop, cross forearms, they call this cross hands, right? Cross hands to lower hoop, okay? When I refer to they, that's usually looking at maybe some of the text that's used to describe motions. So they call it cross hands. But actually, the term actually is cross, meaning a 10. So this, in Chinese, the 10 is like this. It's a cross like this. So cross hand is taking that 10, tilting it like that. So it's a cross in this way, and then cross hands means that that's a position. And then we have a raising of the hand, which is actually lifting. So when we lift two hands, it's this. When we cross like this, it's in your sternum. So cross hands is center line position. Lower hoop is navel height rounding. Okay, that's carry tiger to the mountain. Then we're going to the next level, which is about here, where your solar plexus is now here. We project a line out here and bring a line horizontally across like that. You have the horizontal line at this height. And that's where we're going to create the infinity sign, keeping that line in the center of these two petals. Okay. So there's 4 petals if you look at it on both sides, but I think of it as just these two. These two. Okay. And they're going in and out. It's called divert and block. It's also the infinity sign. It's also right to left. So all these are just terms to describe an action, and that description eventually starts to take hold. And when I say right to left, up and down, forward and back, you start to pick up on the direction of those movements, and you start to define it. Okay, next, form the fist. So this is a little bit too complex to kind of describe every little thing that's happening in there, but we're making a circle by rolling the wrists, and then you punch by going forward and back, and then you have to manipulate the elbow and hand and wrist in order to create that motion. Because if you just use this joint, it's limited to what it can do. So when we're talking about earlier, how many muscles are involved in creating a complex pattern of movement is, quite substantial, because not only are you turning and you're flipping and you're turning palm up and palm down and letting the elbow go out to the side and go back. So you have right, left, forward, up and down, because movements have volume. And the volume of this movement is created by the manipulation of your skeletal structure. Here again, it's complex movement, and the whole purpose of it is to create a pattern, but then engage all the muscle groups that are involved with that. We don't need to know exactly which ones are involved. We can create the motion and use those muscle groups because that's what we have to do. So the important thing is see the pattern and create it, and then everything else will fall in its place. Okay, now find your center line. That's your triangle. And we move from front to back and back to front, and it's just making this shape. It's a semicircle. I mean, there's so many ways you can describe that image or that position. You might even look at it as a coffee bean, where it's like there's a half a side here and a half a side here. Any kind of image that you can put there and try to trace that. Okay, that's making the strum the lute position, which is this. You have one on each side. There's a right and a left side. Whichever's on top in the front side would be your, the right or left. That dictates the direction. This one, the lower hand, is by the elbow. Gives you a position to put this hand. Now when we switch, they kind of replace each other in different ways. If I switch like this, that's the hands are moving like this. If I switch like this, then I create an action that came back and like this. When I blend them, it appears to be much more circular. Okay? If I turn my shoulders to a 45-degree position, that's the hand position. If I put my leg out like this, now that's strum the lute posture, you see. So a strum the lute posture is not square, it's actually slightly angled. So when I say slightly angled, I'm meaning that this part of your chest is facing 45 degrees. See? So these are angular positions that we may not pick up looking directly at me, because you don't see this part of the body, mainly because in video it's two-dimensional, it's flat. But you see movement if you're starting to track that there is a front-to-back movement. Makes it more three-dimensional. That actually isn't so easy to see if you're focusing out here. See? So as you evolve, where you look and what you see really depends on the visual connection to what you're trying to assimilate, right? Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Next, let's get that vertical hand. Let's find the horizontal elbow. Okay. So horizontal elbow, you pick your arm up like this, you find your horizontal. So I use this as, okay, I'm going to put my hand here and push it up. That's going to go up. So my shoulder relaxes and I'll do that. Okay, so if I push my hand like this, I find my horizontal elbow. Now if I relax the tension here, because I released it, because gravity is going to bring my elbow down. That's called sink the elbow. When I lift, you have to determine how much it takes to lift. Now, because we have a bit of control, if we just snapped it up there and let it go and allow a bunch of forces to act on that action, which probably we couldn't do, but it could take your shoulder and then throw it out, right? But we're controlling it, so when we lift, by relaxing, it allows the hand to lift to this position. So it stops here. And then if it drops, it stops here. So you have those two exchanges from vertical to horizontal. So this is important because we have a lot of postures that begin and end through some of these positions, namely vertical and horizontal. Okay, so that's just a term. It's not 100% or pure vertical. It's in the vertical direction. So vertical down is elbow down. Okay, horizontal is taking it out enough for you to realize that it can become right or left. All right, so that's really just a clue that horizontal, vertical is a transition and a pass-through. You find these positions. And by putting your hands together, they become a relationship. Okay, so what are some of the challenges we have when we first do this? One of the biggest challenges, aside from relaxing the shoulder, is how much tension you have in your hand. If you have tension in the hand and you do this, what ends up happening is your arms will get very tired because of the excessive tension that's not known yet. So when you do this enough, then the hands will start to soften, and because they're moving like this and there's tension, it's going to make your hands feel like they're getting, bound up. So that's one thing. All right, now, when we go like this and we bring the hands together, we have the vertical position. We turn to the side, draw the bow. So when like this, it's not like this, it's like this. The hand goes here, this goes like this. One. There's your center, two. If we go back through the center and it just passes, so they merge and separate. Okay, so that's called drawing the bow. So there's an alignment. The alignment is the fingertip there, the middle finger, and the tip of your elbow. Okay, so that's a visual image that that's your position. But sometimes when we do this, it might end up like this. So while we're focusing on this, we forgot this, and we forgot this. So eventually, you'll learn that. Okay. So when you learn that and that, what happens? This recognizes this relationship to this. Now, when it starts to recognize that relationship, it ties into your proprioception and your sensory system. It knows that this is horizontal. It knows that this is the joint position, and it knows that this is the joint position because the elbow's folded. Because here's a version of it not being so correct. It looks almost the same, but if I tilt it over, you would see the angle of this hand is so big. If I pull it like this and pull it like this, now you see from a front view that the alignment of the movement is much truer. So drawing the bow, your body has to be in that alignment to be the most efficient and the most natural direction of equal opposite motions. So you can see that, movements are directional, and then there's a response, and then there's an idea of connection that's naturally aligned. So that actually is efficient and better for your ligaments, tendons, and then the connective tissue that ties all of our musculature and the skeleton together to be working. So movement is key to circulation. Look at how much is involved, and that circulation that's being driven by movement actually goes through every part of the body that involved that. Okay, now we're going to move on from there and spread the feet. We have a top and bottom hand. All right, let's put the left hand on top. What is this? It's cross hands. Cross hands comes in different versions depending on what it's going to be doing. Okay. So my hand can turn up and turn down. Pronation, right? You can turn the forearms, and you can turn. That's designed to do rotational movement. You have an up and you have a down, you have an up and you have a down. You know, we need this action to do certain tasks. You know, if you couldn't turn your forearm down, you couldn't write. If you couldn't turn your forearm down, you wouldn't be able to type. So there's a purpose for why we have to flip our hands up and down. So when the hand is on top and I go like this, I go to the side. This is fan through the back. If I couldn't turn my forearms out or in, I wouldn't be able to create a push. But look at what has to happen to turn. Your muscles in the forearms and so forth have to be involved, and in the forearm, the elbows and so forth have to be involved in creating that motion. We call that spiraling. And if it's going out and turning at the same time, you create a pattern of movement. That's really like a corkscrew. So when movements go in and out, it has rotational movement. And rotational movement is defined as a type of mechanics or force. It's torsion or torque. So our body actually does that. It twists. Now the fact that our body turns like this, it twists. It twists because the spine, your ribs, all of this are engaged here, and it allows the twist. So you can imagine all the joints that are here and all the vertebrae, how they have to be blended together and synchronized to create a motion in a direction. So you can see why so many people have back problems. So many people become discoordinated or uncoordinated or disconnected because the body is not synchronized. You have hundreds of joints in the body and we don't use them. All we do is keep them fairly rigid and do what we can do. Unless you're an athlete or you'll do something that involves some of this movement, then you wouldn't use it. But on a physical side, if you're involved with different types of professions that use the body, you may be using the body, but it's really kind of task specific, depending on what you're doing. But it's not the same fact that you're moving physically at work does not necessarily mean that you're moving your body in a beneficial way to stimulate circulation. The task that you're doing that's physical is only doing the task. It's really not, and actually your body will get stronger in doing that. So if you're like digging a ditch, constantly digging a ditch, you're going to be very strong doing that, and it becomes fairly natural because you use the right group of muscles. But there isn't the total balance. In fact, that becomes sometimes excessive because that's all you do over and over again. Habitually, you get good at that, but on the other side of it, there's some imbalance. So you have to learn to relax. You have to learn to stretch the same muscles that you use functionally in order to keep them from dominating your body. Okay. Now, we're going to go through a few of the postures, right? We have raised the hand first. Before we finish the exercises, we'll have to. So this is up and down lifting, and this really works all of this. This really works all of this on both sides. You align your body, you get your shoulder up as high as you can, and you get your structure, your skeletal structure, the shoulder girdle, all of this to free up and align, and allows you to go up without conflict and allows you to come down by letting go. So this is actually a conflicting movement because most people, this area becomes so tight and rigid because you don't use it in this way. And you've lost this control because all the muscle groups don't know how to respond to each other. So there's conflict. I always use that term conflict because conflict creates havoc. So anyways, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Internal. Okay. Exhale. So external conflict would be on the physical side. Internal conflict is what's happening inside. So there could be conflicts there too as well. All right, now we're going to go, the last few classes I've gone through a lot of the postures. I did repulse the monkey last time. So fan through the back is this. Okay, so we have it on both sides as a drill, but in the form fan through the back is left side push only. Right? So once we get through fan through the back, we end up turning that way, and we end up like this. So we drop the elbow, make a fist, and go forward. There's the hammer fist. Now, if I didn't use my legs, it would just be that. Okay? If I didn't turn, I didn't go forward, I would just turn, then I'm here. So you see there's two positions. 1, 2, 3. But I didn't turn my body, so I can't actually go through here. So if I go like this, I go like this as a hand position, that would be the complete circle. But you don't see the circles. When I fold, it comes in and it comes like this, right through the middle. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm here. This is out here. This is here. 1. This is a position. 2, 3. So you can see the upper body movement, and you see it's kind of not very spatial because there's not a lot of turning. Okay, so we're here. Now I'm going to go forward. The hand is here. I'm going to sit back, invert the hand, and then I'm going to turn. So now the torso is actually about 45 degrees, depending if you release the hip. So the torso essentially only turns 45 degrees. If I turn my hip, then that's really giving it a little bit more direction. And then from here, I round out this side. So this is your horizontal round out. Now I have to go through the inside, and then as I start to drift forward, I turn my shoulders to get my body in the frontal plane to drop my hand. See? So that's what parry and punch is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, they're merging there. 3, 4, and 5. So you can see this hand has its course of direction. This leg and that leg and the back leg have its direction. When I combine this, this, and this, you have the body form in the front hand. When this hand comes in, it comes to here. Then it comes back, then it comes out, then it comes down, and it comes back to here. So that's a pattern of movement. Now when you combine the two, you end up with that. So there's a lot of little transitions there. So you can imagine a posture now takes it even further than just doing this. because that's a pattern that you can work over time and build the range of motion and the spatial awareness of that position. Now you build in two sides of integration, upper and lower, combined. Then you have the two sides, upper body, right and left. And all of that has to blend together. So you can imagine if each one of these segments of your body is moving in a specific pattern, and then it has to work together in unison and blend and be synchronized, and you bring another variable in, which is timing. All of that is building one posture. So you can see how complex movement really, is built up here, that it is so tremendous for brain plasticity and building, everything that's required to create that action and movement. So that's the benefit of the mind. And then what the results are is in the body. So if you have a mind-body relationship in the way you execute these movements, that's the real true benefit of doing something like this. So that's just a snapshot of one posture, and that's parry and punch. It is a pretty complicated movement because there is all that integration of body. So hopefully you can work on that specific technique, which is coming from fan through the back, which is fairly easy when we do this. But once we get to here and we do this, there's one position, there's second position, and the second position, you have to invert the hand. Then as I turn, you create this start position. And then when the hand starts to exchange, you have the up and down position, and then you have the realignment of that. Okay? So none of these positions are actually not really known in the body. What's not known is the combination. What's not known is when and how and so forth to get into one position to the next. So there is a tremendous learning curve in learning any of this stuff. But we're dealing with movement and space, something that most of us are pretty challenged with. So anyways, that's one posture. You can figure that out, play around with that, and work with it. Now we're going to go through, it's Saturday, so we can go through the Tai Chi Paradigm. Most of us don't have to rush to work, so that's it for me. I'm here. Okay, this is preparation. This is part of that beginning style. We're going to turn the corner, separate the hands, and go into grasp the sparrow's tail. What side? Right side, because the right foot is forward and the right hand is pushing. Hook your wrist, turn. Single whip. This is what side single whip? It's the right side because the right hook determines which side it is. The right hook wrist is the right side single whip. Now we're here. That's diagonal flying. It happens in the front. 1, 2, 3. Shift. Center. Shoulder width. Raise the hand. Sometimes I'm just going to highlight some of the key things during the passing through of the movements. Strum the lute. Here's the opposite side. Right push. Right rear leg. Okay, so that's opposite. And back, center. Then we go forward, left side, and this is your left side, left push. Actually, we call it brush knee and push. So the brushing of the knee is the front hand. That's the term we use. But the translation in the Chinese term is actually the opposite. It says it's the opposite side of the push. So it's the relationship between the leg and the hand. It's not on the front leg. Then we go to neutral position. We go like this, and we go like this. This is strum the lute, close the door. Center line. Fingertips up. Form the fist. Punch. Divert, block, and punch. Infinity sign. Cross the arms, palms facing you. double palm push. Leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Neutral. So remember the vertical elbow, neutral. Fist under elbow, vertical on the front side, vertical, horizontal on the back side. So this is elbow down, but then horizontal in the forearm. Vertical. Repulse the monkey, straighten the back foot. Done 3 times, turn to your right. Straighten the back foot. So in repulse the monkey, we straighten the back foot. In brush knee step through, we twist step the front foot. Okay, now we're going to go one more time because there's 3 sets of these. We straighten the back foot. Hand movements are like brush knee. Now we go to the right side. Hold the ball. So the top hand just flips over. Step up. And then we have a diagonal flying. Okay, now we'll go to center. Pull it in. Insert the needle. Step forward, fan through the back. We've spread the hand. This is your left side push. This is in front of the forehead. Turn. Here's parry and punch. We did this posture. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we form the fist like in the exercises. Step up and punch. Infinity sign. And you go out to the left and you go back to center and then you punch. Now we do this twice. Both of those are exactly the same. Now we step up. That was a twist step, step forward. And then we're going to, sorry. Where are we? We form the fist. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So this is leopard and tiger springs to mountain. I lost my place. That's actually in the long form. Now here's carry tiger to the mountain. Okay, now we're in the cross hand position and cross your form. Now here your cross hand is like this. Hands face out. Left hand goes up. Then we bend down and we turn around going, if you're looking, it's counterclockwise. If you're looking at me, that looks like it's clockwise, but it's counterclockwise, and you went from right to left, and we're going to turn all the way to the left. To do left side, grasp the sparrow's tail. We're going back and forward, so it's your left push, hook your wrist, and this is the left single whip because it's the hook side on the left. Palm in, hold the ball. So that's the procedure to get the hold the ball. But we flip it, reverse the ball. We lean, straighten the back foot, diagonal flying. Now we filled this side with 2 part the horse's mane. So we have diagonal flying and part the horse's mane as the first 2 movements once we make that turn. Now we're going to step up left side to right side. Now we're going to stroke down. Here's part the horse's mane again. Okay, so near the end of the form before Jade Lady work shadow is part the horse's mane. Okay, so diagonal flying happens a lot more. Okay, so here's Jade Lady work shadow, and we cross over, Jade Lady work shadow. This was a tutorial that we did before. You can try to find that, or the next class I'm still moving through the form, so I'll probably review that again. Now cloud hands is this movement. To single whip. Then we hold the ball. Okay, reverse the ball, adjust the feet, and all of that eventually is all synchronized. And blended together. So it's timing. You know, you move your legs, you move your hands, you move your hands, you move your legs. And then the space between moving hands and legs get closely knitted. And then eventually those movements look like they're happening almost simultaneously. But it's the cycle of movement that blends it so seamlessly that it appears that there's no stopping in the movements. Okay, so that's Tai Chi Paradigm. We're going to move on to the 108 movement form. Deep breathing. And inhale. So while we've worked on a lot of the different components in the long form, I'm going to go back and we're going to work cloud hands a little bit again. All right. So with cloud hands, when we stand like this, okay, so if you're doing, say, the 24 movement simplified form, or you're doing Tai Chi Paradigm or the 108 movement form, what's a little bit, well, the hand moves essentially look the same, but what's significantly different in the transition of the circles? So if I do the vertical hand and then the vertical hand, this is more of what I teach in the Tai Chi Paradigm and also the long form. So you have two vertical positions. Between the vertical and the horizontal, you have this and you have this, right? Those are your cross hand angular positions. Now if I go like this and then I turn and go like this and bring it down, bring it up, and I sink my elbow and turn I turn over like this. Now the cloud hand has a bit of angular motion in it rather than horizontal. Right? So that's one of the main differences in the way it looks and also in its functionality and action. If I go like this, I have a horizontal transition right to left. If I go like this, I have a horizontal transition right to left. Right? So it's the exchange of the two movements as to how those characteristics are going to look as a form and as a stylistic difference. So what's kind of left out in this is that specific angle, that angular position. So that's, on a functional side, there's a different interpretation of the movement. But typically in cloud hands, and if you don't move your feet, as far as twisting, you're still moving your feet, but keeping them parallel. Then you have more of the Yang style Tai Chi. So the movements phase and drift across, and there's not a lot of corner to corner, or at least not as extreme, because we don't pivot the feet. So what happens when you pivot your feet? The whole space that we dealt with from 0 to 45 and 45, which is 90 degrees, has expanded like this. So that expansion takes the cloud hands over a larger range of space. So that increases the range of motion, but it's really increasing your spatial awareness of position. So if my cloud hand is here and I turn to here, and then I step to here, and I turn my waist, and I turn my waist to there, and then I start to turn, you see the transition that takes us into the space becomes much more enhanced. So if the body is learning through muscle memory, joint angle position, your body consistently twists and turns and evolves in this space. So that's what the difference is in the Wu style cloud hands, especially at least the way we do them, or at least I teach it, covers that space. And that gives you a wider range of motion. And it also allows the body to become much more familiar with direction of movement. So the leg work and the spatial awareness and how the body starts to turn and unturn and turn and unturn really becomes a whole different level of understanding space. Now in Tai Chi, we have the cloud hands in every style. Everyone does them slightly different based on stylistic differences. Some people cross the legs. Some people have their hands facing this way, and depends on how much you turn. This is crossing in front. This is crossing in back. It's very, very unique in the way it's approached. but it is still an upper body synchronization. It's still dealing with a specific space in this order, and that coordination between here, 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 and here really is defining what that space is based on what has to happen within the realm of your space. So really depends on where what part of your limb, your appendage, what part of the surface is actually used to describe the intent of the movement, because every movement is directional, and every direction is a sort of a force and an intention of how you're going to utilize that motion. So in cloud hands, when we move side to side, it's this and this. There's a lower hand, there's an upper hand, there's a transition, there's a torso movement that turns and turns. There's a lean and a turn and a shift. There's a lean and a turn. Now this is a vertical. This is here, here, here. How you define these positions over time really is something that most people are not very aware of, that kind of thing happens. So we always just look at cloud hand as just a fluid movement that actually just takes you through a space. But it's not just randomly waving your hands. If you're taking it to a level of understanding where the human body mechanics involved in the levers, the fulcrums, the pivots, the turns, all of those things become heightened awareness of body mechanics, leverage, fulcrums, and the ability to adapt this structure to functionality. So functionality is not just how you move your arms in space, but it's how you apply your arms in space. So those techniques are actually important, still depending on what you're utilizing it for. If you're rowing a canoe, or you're maneuvering, whatever it is that requires your arms to be doing something. It could be churning, it could be stirring, it could be anything that you're doing with some form of apparatus. It could be sweeping, it could be anything that deals with space and functionality, some task that you're trying to do. That actually starts to tie your body together. Now, people that use a broom or use a mop or whatever, there is a give and take in the hand movement, but most of us that are not very skilled with it would just do one thing, where they're working in tandem. But if you're doing it like this, or you're doing it like this, that actually creates a different type of action, much more efficient, much more practical in many ways. So that's just cloud hands. You can imagine going to another posture and trying to figure what that is. Okay, now, deep breathing. We're going to run through the sequence from leopard and tiger springs to mountain. Okay, so we're here. Bring it down, carry tiger to the mountain. Cross hands, turn to the corner. Oblique brush knees. That's both left and right side, or right and left side here. We go forward. Now let's sit back and turn. Now we just wound up our waist. Let's unwind the body to get to here. Turn again. Left side push. Vertical. Grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. This is oblique, facing that corner, the same 45 that I've been talking about. Now we're going to turn. That's going to be 135 degree to this side, fist under elbow. Neutral position. Forward, repulse the monkey. Remember, straighten the back foot, so that's key in this. Turning of the waist actually takes us in the direction that's dictated by the elbow. The back leg straightens, and then you reverse the stance. It's done 3 times. Okay, once we reverse and finish the hand movement, we have carry tiger to the mountain. Go to the lower hoop, lift up, balance in that leg, open the hips, go down into the stance, spiral into this. So you come through center and then lower to upper, diagonal flying, shift, step up, and repeat this. This is step up and raise the hand. Bend from the waist, stork flaps wings. Remember, these are only about where your forehead is. Turn, drop your elbows to vertical, brush knee one time, insert the needle, lift up, drop it in. That's insert needle to the bottom of the C, fan through the back, and here we are again. We did this earlier, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now retreat. So remember, straighten the back foot, divert, block, punch. We know what that is. That's the infinity sign. We know what this is step up and grasp the sparrow's tail. Remember, stepping up is advancing forward. So it's moving up, and here's your cloud hands. Shift and pivot. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So that you cycle through, and it's the same process for each one of these groupings of movements. So cloud hands is made up of 3 groupings of these maneuvers, and we're here. And back to right side single whip, and then we're here. Kicks. 1, 2, 3. That's reversing the ball or opening the hands. 1, fold, lift. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Planting punch, parry and punch, it just goes through and cycle. So I just pulse you through the last segment of the form so you can see that each pulse becomes a motion and a phase, and as you start to pick up on that, eventually your body will know. It actually gets much more intelligent as you develop your technique. So ultimately, we're trying to build body intelligence. And there's a whole lot of different ideas of what you think body intelligence is. And there's your parry and punch again. So a lot of these postures just kind of happen over and over again at different places in the form. And here we are again. Just to repeat those oblique motions, it just gives you another opportunity to practice a segment of the form. Now the long form only has right side grasp the sparrow's tail. So we're going to go back to the front because we have this transition, and this transition isn't in a lot of the other traditional forms, mainly because these are somewhat of stylistic differences specific to our Wu Style Tai Chi form. And does that matter? Only on a stylistic difference. I mean, ultimately, all forms are used as a vehicle to practice and as a vehicle to train. The insights and development and the understanding comes from your discovery and the combination of what you need to develop from this body intelligence. Then we cross over Jade Lady Work Shuttle. We have 4 of these. Actually, the 2 sets are identical in footwork and in position, except on these corners, with this one I have part the horse's mane. Okay. When I get to the other corner, now there's the other half, the mirror image to the same movements. So you do it right and left, but the footwork is actually all moving in the same direction. They're all clockwise rotations as far as footwork. And then here we have grasp the sparrow's tail. And we're back to the front, and we have single whip. Okay? Because only right side grasp the sparrow's tail, so we only have right side single whips. Now here we have snake sticks out tongue. Invert the hand, spread the feet, pull down, step up, cross the hands, lift up, and Jade Lady Work Shuttle. That's the Wu Style one with the hook foot. That's like this. That's unique to our style. And this is brush knee. But it's really repulse the monkey. The hands are so close, it's really the footwork going backwards. It's called retreat and repulse the monkey. And we're finished here. Now we're going to go to neutral. Okay, we're going to carry tiger to the mountain again. And then we're going to go through another repeat. Oops, go out to the side, go to another set of repeats, and do the second insert needle, second fan to the back, and so forth. Okay, so while you're learning the long form, I'm sure by now you're starting to see the pattern. You're starting to see that there's some common elements in the forms. And here we step forward. And we're familiar with these because we've done these quite a few times, including in the Tai Chi Paradigm. So here's grasp the sparrow's tail again. And here's single whip. Cloud hands again. We have 3 sets, each set defining a series of movements that actually will be followed. So you can, I'm not going to tell you what those movements are, you can see if you can identify them. And we're back to single whip again. And next we have this setup that turns to palm strikes face. Turn, instead of a parry and punch will happen later, single lotus kick. And then we have the left side brush knee, okay? And we have the actually single movement that's called punch down to crotch. The other time we did in the first part of the form was planting punch down to crotch. The difference is this is punching down at an angle. This one is actually inserting like this, sort of like inserting needle. Okay, So then once we complete that, we do the next movement, and we step up. And that's step up and grasp the sparrow's tail. Second time, but more than just the footwork was different, more than the. Now here we're going to go into the downward posture for the second time. Okay, no more cloud hands. Invert, pull down, up again to, what's this called? Cross hands, right? 7 stars. It's called 7 star. This is hook, ride the tiger, another palm strikes face. We change and turn, second palm. Now here we're going to bring the hands like this. We're going to lift the leg like this, and we're going to bring it around. If you can't hit the foot, slap your knee. And draw bow to shoot tiger. We're going to rush through this 1, 2, 3, because I got tapped out. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Blend it all together, make it completely seamless, get up to the end of the form. And here we are, closing the form. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, good. So that was that. That was a bit of a rush. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share this, review it if you need to. See you next time. Go to YouTube's and, like I said, share it and subscribe. Okay, thanks for following.